Now, there were some quotes from the Cowboys contingent in Palm Beach, specifically Stephen Jones, hinting that they might be doing something at the quarterback position, and they did it yesterday. Joe Milton, 6th-round pick out of Tennessee last year, who started the Week 18 game that the Patriots really didn't want to win. They really didn't want to win it. If they'd lost, they'd be holding the number 1 overall pick in the draft right now. But they won it against a Bills team that really didn't want to win the game because they didn't want the Patriots to have the 1st overall pick in the draft. But there's just been this quiet buzz about Joe Milton. And there's been plenty of talk that the Patriots are going to trade him because they need it to be Drake Maye's team. And having Joe Milton there, a guy who's confident he can play, it could undermine Drake Maye. And it could lead to a, wait for it, schism within some reaches of the locker room that maybe Milton's the better option than Drake Maye, especially if Maye should struggle this year. So it felt like this trade was coming. I was surprised that it was the Cowboys, Charean, when you have teams out there who currently have needs at the quarterback position and need to be thinking about who's going to play now and in the future. I thought those teams would be more inclined to take a Joe Milton because he is clearly going to be back up in Dallas for the 3 remaining years on his rookie contract.
Yeah, I'd heard rumblings that they were interested in Joe Milton. So from that standpoint, was a surprise. To me, it's a great trade for the Cowboys. Unlike the Trey Lance trade, I was on this show last year or 2 years ago when they traded for Trey Lance, and they gave up too much. As John Lynch publicly said, they gave up too much to get Trey Lance. I like this trade for the Cowboys. I like him as a backup behind Dak Prescott. They weren't going to pay Cooper Rush. I'm going to bring a name out, Mike, that probably only you and I are old enough to remember, but Don Strock. Don Strock made a history in this league of playing quarterback. He played for 15 years, made 22 starts in those 15 years, but he was a very good backup. I think that's what Cooper Rush is. I think in the short term, you can win with Cooper Rush. He's played 8 seasons. He made 14 starts. He's 9-5, 20 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. But he's not going to be your long-term quarterback. He knows where he stands. He knows what his role is. He's accepted that. The Cowboys weren't going to give him what the Ravens gave him. They said that right after the season ended. He got a 2-year, $12.2 million deal with the Ravens, so they had to find a backup quarterback. They either had to draft one or they had to re-sign Trey Lance or go somewhere else to get one, draft one, however they were going to get it. To me, this is their best-case scenario. They still have Will Grier, and now they have Joe Milton, who they think they might be able to develop. They like that developmental quarterback behind Dak. But this guy could play for the Cowboys. 3 of the past 5 seasons, Dak Prescott's missed at least 5 games. He's missed 25 games total in the past 5 seasons. So this is a guy who could come to Dallas and actually have to take the field, and they'll see what they have in him. But I think it's going to be an important preseason for him to learn the offense, see what he looks like in the offense. And then they can decide who the number 2 is. Is it Will Grier? Is it Joe Milton?
Don Strock, by the way, entered the NFL in 1974 out of Virginia Tech. He went straight to the Dolphins. Now, he got there 1 year too late as it relates to the Dolphins winning Super Bowls. He was with the Dolphins through 1987, so he was part of the team for 2 Super Bowls that didn't work out. He had one final season with a different team. Charean, for the new car,
oh gosh,
and $5,000 in cash, can you name the other team that Don Strock played for to cap his career? And he actually started 2 games that season.
Oh my God! I'm just going to pull a team out of thin air. The Broncos.
Let's see. Oh, close. Oh, you were close. You had the first 3 letters. It was the Browns. The Browns is the Browns, so he was with the Browns in one of those 2 years that they went to the AFC Championship and lost to the Denver Broncos. Wait, was it the Broncos in 88?
That's a good question.
No, it wasn't the Broncos in 88. Wait, they lost to the Broncos in 87 in the AFC Championship. When was the Ernest Biner fumble? They lost to the Oilers in the 88 postseason. When was the Biner fumble? That must have been 89 to the Broncos. So it was 87-89, not 87-88. So he wasn't there for even the game that would have gotten them to the Super Bowl. All right, so back to Milton. The package is a 5th-round pick to the Patriots, plus Milton and a 7. They have given up some mid- to late-round picks for players in areas of need recently. Last year, a fourth-round pick was sent to the Panthers for receiver Jonathan Mingo. They have been heavily criticized for that. Also, a couple of years ago, they gave up a fourth-round pick to get quarterback Trey Lance, who is still on the market a month into free agency. They've already been criticized for just blowing these picks on guys who aren't going to play, and ideally Milton will never play. That's the thing. He's the backup to a guy who's had injuries. He's had multiple injuries, and he's the highest-paid quarterback, well, second highest-paid right now behind Josh Allen, depending upon the metrics, but he's a guy that has shown that there will be moments where he can't go, and that's what Milton is going to have as his opportunity. So, and it's not like Milton got to choose the Cowboys, but the silver lining here, the glass half full here is at some point over the next 3 years, chances are he's going to get to play, and he's going to have a chance to play well enough that when this rookie contract expires, he becomes that Tyrod Taylor we were referring to earlier, the guy who started his career with a backup role, and then when he hits free agency, someone's maybe willing to give him a chance to walk through the door and be a starter.
Yeah, I think this is a good move for Joe Milton, and he has an opportunity to compete for that number 2 job, and I think they traded for him thinking that he's going to be the number 2 quarterback and Will Greer's going to be the number 3. It all depends on how quickly he can learn the offense and what he shows in the preseason, but I think there's a really good chance he ends up as the number 2 quarterback, and he ends up playing at some point. We'll see how many games that he'll end up playing, but based on Dak Prescott's recent injury history, you would have to think he's going to play at some point this season. So this is good for Joe Milton, and I think it's good for the Cowboys. It's one of the few trades over the last 3 years that I've said the Cowboys did well on this. I thought when they traded for Amari Cooper was a good trade for them. When they traded for Stephon Gilmore, I thought that was a good trade for them. They made a few, but the last couple have not been good. The Mingo trade was not good, and the Trey Lance trade was not good. They gave up way too much for both of those guys. This one I like. It's a compensatory pick that they gave up. They would have drafted one anyway, and they probably would have drafted one before the 4th round. So to me, this was a really good trade by the Cowboys.
And it does align with the practical exit from the Dak Prescott contract. The way that deal was structured, they're pretty much stuck through 27. So Milton's under contract through 27. Prescott is under contract technically through 28, but they're going to have a hard time from a cap standpoint moving on from Prescott before then. But I will say this. If they decide they really like Joe Milton, having him on a rookie contract for the next 3 years, if they would ever decide they want to pivot, and I'm not saying they will, I'm not saying they should, I'm saying in theory, potentially, depending upon how the dominoes fall, they could, that having Milton there at that low number would make it easier to move on from Dak if they would decide to do it after the 26th season, for example. Let's say there's a Tony Romo situation where Dak Prescott gets injured and Milton comes in and plays well, and they just realize they got something in this kid and they want to move forward with him, and that's when the veteran gets nudged to the side, the same way Tony Romo did. That the year they drafted Dak Prescott, the year they wanted Paxton Lynch, and fortunately for the Cowboys, they weren't able to get Paxton Lynch. That was the year they settled for Dak Prescott in round 4, and boom, he shows up, gets to play, Romo's back's messed up, and the next thing you know, he's the franchise guy. So I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just saying in theory it's possible. They got a guy cheap now who will be there for 3 years while they have one of the highest paid quarterbacks for the next 3 years, and it gives them some flexibility that they otherwise wouldn't have had. And I'm just surprised there wasn't another team out there who's got more immediate needs for a quarterback on the field that didn't swoop in and offer more than what the Cowboys put on the table. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.